The White Sox have more ex-players than they do players on Baseball America's Top 100 rankings. Let's discuss this latest example of watching talented players leave next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, Baseball America recently published their top 100 player rankings, and there's not a single White Sox player on it. There are 5 former White Sox on the list, with one making his debut. Let's discuss this latest example of talented players always being traded away by this organization in the first segment. Then the White Sox will not be on a single national TV game. Pretty much MLB has said the Sox are unwatchable. And finally, on today's Way Back Wednesday, let's go over the revolving door at second base as the team is set to have another opening day starting second baseman. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, so while it would be nice to dream of better days with 6 prospects in the top 100 according to MLB Pipeline, pretty much across all publications too, and some publications have the White Sox having 7 prospects in their top 100. So it'd be nice that eventually they turn into actual top 100 players for a current, for the current MLB team. And when you look at top 100 lists, obviously they can be subjective sometimes, but not Baseball America's. They at least try to use scouting standards based on their methodology. And here's their methodology. Through the years, Baseball America has evaluated the potential for thousands of prospects. Now, for the 3rd year in a row, we are carrying that exercise through to Major League players. This year, we sorted all MLB players by BA grades on the 20/80 scale and ranked the top 100. Every player in the top 100 receives a 55 grade or higher. Players are ranked in terms of their projected 2025 impact only. No value beyond the season is factored into these evaluations. And then how they interpret the BA grades, 75 to 80, that's a franchise player or number 1 starter. They have a 5.0 or more WAR. 65 to 70, that's a perennial all-star or number 1/2 starter. That's a WAR of 4 to 4.9. 60, that's your occasional all-star or number 2, number 3 starter. That's a WAR of 3.5 to 3.9. And then a 55, that's, first division regular or a number 3 to 4 starter. And that's a WAR of about 3.0. So getting back to now the commentary, that means the Sox legitimately do not have a player that has even met the minimum standards of being a good regular player. That's basically what Baseball America is saying. And that's how you get 100 losses when it comes to talent. And maybe next year the White Sox will actually have some guys joining this list, especially if youngsters such as Colson Montgomery, Edgar Carroll, and Kyle Teal come in and make an immediate impact. Maybe Sean Burke can duplicate Garrett Crochet's season. 2024 season is going from an inexperienced opening day starter to an all-star. Maybe if he does that, I'm sure he'll be on that list too. And I bet in 2027, you'll probably see top pitching prospects Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith if they debut next season and live up to their promise as well. But currently, you have a respected publication confirming what you and I all see. And that's a terrible roster built on replacement level players or even less. And how did it get here? Well, an owner's unwillingness to spend money, market money for this type of talent when you're talking about, level, how they had Baseball America had it as, level, 55 and up, basically a first division regular. Again, they don't even have like what you consider a top tier regular player or even what you would consider a number 3 to number 4 starter, although I think that's trending with Davis Martin too, potentially. But the owner's not willing to pay the going market rate for those type of guys. And then obviously operating way behind the times, thinking, well, we won a World Series in 2005 doing it this way. It'll obviously be the same 20 years later. And then just trading away top 100 talent because, again, the owner doesn't want to pay them. Oh, and poor drafting during last decade as well. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the Sox have 5 former players on the top 100, and all of them basically meet kind of how the White Sox got to this horrific state. Although an asterisk is needed for 2 of them because, they basically just came onto this list again. And also a couple of them are part of just more back in terms of the past of how, in the big picture, yes, they help get to this team's decay, how I'm going to relate it, but they're not fully part of like the whole reason why we're now at this low bottom. And the other, because two of them, they left the organization, last decade, because part of it was the team wanted to go for it and they had to rebuild. And by always going for it, which one of these players will be on the list, actually two, is one of the reasons why in the overall grand scheme of things, yes, the Sox got to this decaying carcass of a franchise. But also one of the players that I'm going to go over, they actually had a chance to bring one of those players back, but the owner's penny pinching ways did not allow it to happen. Another reason why the White Sox are in this current sad state. So let's go over these five players, shall we? Fernando Tatis Jr. Yes, he never played a big league game for the Sox, but he was a prospect of the team at one point, and he was traded away in that ill-fated James Shields trade. And he checks in at number 16 with a 70 grade. So think about that. Last decade, even though Rick Hahn was in charge of the team at that point, or at least he was supposed to be the main decision maker after Kenny Williams kicks himself upstairs, that whole go for it, the White Sox trade a 70 grade player, a player that turns out to be a 70 grade player, for James Shields, when it was clear that he was at the end of his run. Again, that looking for it now, that not having the, ability to look at things from a 40,000 foot view that was so lacking under Kenny and Rick, you don't have a 70 grade player on this roster. Although I doubt the Sox would have paid him the going rate to keep him, obviously. And yes, he did get suspended for, PEDs at one point. But here's the one that's going to be frustrating to see. Garrett Crochet, he checks in at number 32. He was obviously not ranked last season, and he wasn't ranked in the 2023 rankings either. So that means even during an awful season such as 2024, the Sox actually developed a top 40 player and then immediately traded him away. Now, the reason he needed to be traded, that's been tackled extensively on past episodes. You can go back. I mean, obviously, that I think I beat that dead horse pretty good there. But just seeing his name on this list with a 65 grade, well, on one end, it can be encouraging knowing the Sox are capable of developing an ace pitcher under pitching czar Brian Bannister's tutelage. But it also speaks again to this frustration that you and I have that the team did not even entertain trying to extend him. And he was a young pitcher. I mean, part of the logic was just two ships passing in the night. In terms of the team control, it would have ran out in 2027. That might have been the first year that the White Sox could be competitive. But they didn't even entertain like, hey, maybe we should try extending this guy through 2030. They made one attempt. Chris Getz made one attempt. And I'm sure the asking price was so astronomical that they're like, whoa, we can't do that. And we're so thin on elite talent in our farm system, we have to trade him. Chris Sale, he's back on the list at number 40. And it'll always be the great what could have been. As, he's always just been a sore spot for Sox fans, including me. Again, what could have been, how this team could not pull off a playoff roster around him and Jose Quintana. I know I talk about it a lot, but it's always going to be one of those baffling things. But however, when you trade Fernando Tatis Jr. for James Shields, you start to see why. Dylan Cease checks in at number 48 with a 60 grade, another pitcher that just had to be traded, in part because the team was not interested in extending him, because heaven forbid you have to pay the going rate of a pitcher who is a runner-up for a Cy Young. And I know the 2023 season, he struggled. He had that 4.5 ERA, but every team was like, all he's got to do is make a couple tweaks and he'll be back to being Cy Cease. And guess what happens? Goes to San Diego, throws a no-hitter, has an amazing season. Marcus Semien, he's number 49. Now, Semien has been long gone from the South Side. Last played for the Sox in 2014, but he represents that Kenny always going for it, not looking at things in the long run. That helped the Sox, obviously, in hindsight being 2020, to get to this point, because he was always trading away prospects or talented young players for guys that he thought could help in the immediate. And he traded them for Jeff Samardzija, which I'll be talking about in the third segment. But you think about it, the reason why I'm bringing him up too is the Sox could have brought him back in 2022 when he was a free agent. I remember reading about, hey, this is a guy that the Sox should get. If they're not going for Corey Seager, they should go for Marcus Semien. And what do the Rangers do? They went for Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. The Sox decided to go with Josh Harrison, who, again, I will talk about in the third segment. But he could have finally brought some stability to second base and maybe have been that free agent to complete the rebuild. Because the one thing the Sox never did, and remember, I had Scott Merkin on the show a month or two back about how they just never made that free agency move to really complete the rebuild. Like you think about when John Lester and even Jason Hayward, even though he turned out to not be very productive for the Cubs, he did give that rousing speech and at least he could catch the ball. But it represented that, hey, we're spending money. We're going to do whatever we can to put ourselves over the top, and we're going to complete this rebuild. But nope, too expensive. And since the owner was only willing to spend so much, basically a self-imposed salary cap, and the limited financial resources were already tied up in the bullpen and Dallas Keuchel and Yasmani Grandal, he's off to the Rangers, and he's still producing. He's aging fine. He's aging like a fine wine, because you could say, well, he was going to be 30. Okay. He's made 2 All-Star teams since then. So there's your 5 guys. But there it is. 5 guys in the top 100, and the White Sox do not have a single player. And in terms of the division, the division's going to be tough for a while because 3 of the top 10 players, they're in the Central. Number 2 is Kansas City's Bobby Witt Jr. Number 7 is the Tigers' Tariq Skubal. And Cleveland's Jose Ramirez is number 8. The Guardians also have Stephen Kwan at 57 and Tanner Bibby at number 87. Riley Green, imagine if the Sox had drafted him instead of Andrew Vaughn in 2019. He's ranked number 31. Cole Reagans is the Royals' other top 100 player at 46. And the Twins, they actually have 2 players in the top 100 with Pablo Lopez at number 56 and Carlos Correa at number 84. Well, the league's view of the Sox being negative continues as the White Sox, even though they're still in the 3rd biggest market, they're not going to be on national television at all. Not surprised, but as SouthsideSox.com pointed out, it is a signal that the White Sox you can consider the White Sox to be unwatchable. So let's discuss that after the break on Locked On White Sox. Get the supplies you need from the site for the skilled trade Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. When it comes to, that's supplyhouse.com. Sorry about that. And then there's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets even easier. With last minute deals, all-in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as the game as you get closer to game time, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and as the White Sox season is coming up, I can count on them to grab tickets that meet my needs. My plan is to actually get to a few games this year on the South Side, and you best believe I'm going to be using that Game Time app. And I've used Game Time in the past for deals, trying to look for deals for my beloved Marquette Hoops. I love that I can get a preview of the exact seat that I'm going to be purchasing before I buy. No bad surprises when I get to the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. So I love SouthsideSox.com's headline, "Congratulations, White Sox, you're officially unwatchable." Bravo, Melissa Sage Bolenbach. Hopefully I got that name right. I know she listens to the show. Really like reading her work on SouthsideSox.com too, but bravo for coming up for that one. And if you got help from our friend Brett Ballantini, who runs the site, both of you guys deserve amazing kudos for that. Because think about it, the White Sox are officially unwatchable. They're officially unwatchable because they're not available in 50% of the Chicago household market. And now they're not going to be on national television either. Because, think about it. Now it's even going to be harder to even catch a random White Sox game if you still want to check in. Because for those living in Chicago, you're not going to get White Sox games on CHSN, their new RSN, unless you want to switch to Dish, get an antenna, pay $19.99 to stream Sox games on the CHSN app, or you got to pay $29.99 for the MLB.TV package if you live out, if you do live out of town and you're not within the local blackout rules. But national TV games for Major League Baseball, at least this season, will be on ESPN, Fox, FS1, TBS, Apple TV, and Roku. And there's not a single White Sox game. Not one. I mean, think about it. Even coming off 100 losses in 2023, the Sox had some national TV games. But I guess if you lose 121 games, well, that's what the nation doesn't want to see. And I love what Melissa wrote on SouthsideSox.com. Here's what I like this little blurb, and that's why I want to share with you guys. Make sure to check out the entire piece. You've indeed hit rock bottom when you're not even worthy of a single national broadcast, even incidentally against a premium opponent. As White Sox fans, we've been embarrassed for a while now, at least 2 decades. It's not exactly a new feeling being the second team in the second city, but this feels different. We're no longer just playing second fiddle. We've tumbled down into the company of perennial basement dwellers like the Athletics, Rockies, Marlins, and Angels. And for the first time in a long time, it's hard to argue we don't belong there. Even the team based outside of the U.S., the Blue Jays, has a U.S. national television presence. A team playing this season in a minor league park, likely losing its home field for good. Rays, yep, national TV presence. So think about that. I mean, the Rays might not even be playing in Tampa in the next 5 years. Their ballpark, their roof got completely ripped off by a hurricane, but they're still going to get a national TV game because, again, they're at least have an owner who, even though he's making a heel turn locally, he's still a very good owner who has a very good front office that puts good teams out on the field. And that's the guy that Major League Baseball is trying to run off. But the owner who won't spend the market rate, maybe that's because he just won't spend, but the owner who, like I said in the last segment, just keeps trading away good players, has alienated the local fan base and now the national fan base. Yeah, let's keep that guy around. Now, the Sox obviously could still have a game, switch to national TV later in the season, especially if they're playing a team in a playoff race. I've seen that happen, and I know you hate it when I bring up the Milwaukee Brewers, but I remember when I first started covering the Brewers 20 years ago, coming off that 2002 where they lost 100 games, they were on national TV. 2003, they're not on national TV. And I think it was actually 2004. Like, they were not on national TV for a while, but they did get picked up when they were playing the Houston Astros. I think it was at the end of the 03 or 04 season when the Cardinals were in a tight race. But it was also a home game for the Astros when the Astros were in the National League. So there might be about it, but think about it. The novelty of losing has even worn off for the White Sox, because the Sox had some Fox games last year and they were making their march to infamy, and Fox found a way to spin it to keep them on. Because Fox could have said, we're not carrying this game, because I think they have the right to opt out. Maybe they don't. I know ESPN, for example, the Blackhawks, they've got that right. The shine on Connor Bedard is kind of worn off, or they got rid of the Connor Bedard-Sidney Crosby matchup later in April. But either way, they were still like, hey, let's run the Sox, because we can talk about how historically awful they are. One of the reasons why we found out about the 1916 Philadelphia A's and the worst losing percentage was because the Sox were on a Fox nationally TV, a national televised game. At least they were the B game, on that end. But now, they're just, nobody wants to pick them up. And I get, while this was not the offseason to spend a lot of money on free agency, you would still think, though, this entire TV problem for an owner who's always been driven by TV money would at least spur the owner to maybe sign players for more than just $5 million. Maybe he would authorize his general manager to go out and maybe get a $10 million free agent like Jose Quintana. And he signed for way, way, way less. But, still, like, maybe you would just spend a little bit, because then that way you can at least have a watchable product to maybe put some pressure on Comcast to now start carrying your regionally owned RSN, CHSN on their station, because you could at least say, well, I got some games on Now national TV, because that's a sad, pathetic excuse both the cable providers and the teams use when they are in these disputes. Well, you can still access your team this way. But I mean, for the White Sox, you literally, if you want to even just check in, you're going to have to pay for it in some way, or you're going to have to use outdated technology. So, I mean, it would have been nice if the White Sox had spent more than like $5 million to get Martin Perez, because that was the most expensive free agent signing. And Andrew Vaughn is the most expensive contract of the offseason. It would have been nice because he got the $5.8 million in ARB. That's all he did. So while, yes, I would like the White Sox to finish the season with the arrow pointing up, and there's still potential for that, I would also like it's to stop feeling like it's a chore to watch the White Sox, or even if you just have the urge to check in, it feels like it's going to be a chore this season. I mean, I'm here for you. If you don't want to even check in, because I view watching White Sox baseball as my penance for all the, some of the terrible things I've done in my life, as Bill Veeck said, to free a man of any form of penance, it's to be a White Sox fan. But it would be nice to, it not be so hard to access the White Sox if you just don't want to make a trip down to Wright Field. Because it should be very easy to get tickets at Wright Field this year. And they just came out with their food. It's amazing food. Again, like all their specials. But as the joke is, if the White Sox maybe would spend more time on, the quality of their roster instead of the quality of their food, maybe they wouldn't even be in this situation. But it's just, it feels like it's so hard to get access to the White Sox in terms of just watching their product. Even if they're terrible, I still love the White Sox. I'm still going to watch games. But, and even if you're apathetic, but you still want to every now and again, hey, flick through channels. Oh, the White Sox are on. Let's see how bad they are. Hey, they're being competitive. It's going to be hard. And when it comes to national TV, I'm fine with the Dodgers being on national TV 21 times. In fact, I think 21 is rather light, but obviously they play on the West Coast. And I'm okay with the Mets being on 20 times, even the Yankees 17, because they got players worth watching. But just stop making it even hard in general to watch the rest of the good teams. I mean, the Cleveland Guardians, the Kansas City Royals, they're good teams. They've got good players. They're worth watching. I think they're only on like 13 or 14 times because of market size. Stop making it so hard to access the product. I mean, especially you got these ridiculous local blackout rules where, like, say, fans in Iowa, they can't access the White Sox. They can't even access the Cubs. I don't even think they can access the Twins and the Brewers either because of these stupid, ridiculous blackout rules. And then the league wonders, why is there such an interest problem in the States? We need to go to Tokyo because they still love our product, that type of stuff. Well, anyways, who knows if Josh Rojas will be starting at second base on opening day with his toe injury. But what we do know, it'll be another opening day starter at second base for the 12th straight season. So let's go over the infamous line on today's, let's go over that infamous line of players that they've used on today's Way Back Wednesday. That's after the break. Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Got some right here. And Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. Just Ingredients prioritizes wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial junk. Can't wait to put some of that whey protein in the smoothies I make every morning. They got great flavors, that type of stuff too. And whether you're recovering after a workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout deliver real results. Visit justingredients.us/Bryce Harper, Bryce-Harper too, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first order. Again, that's justingredients.us/Bryce-Harper and use code LOCKEDON for 20% off. And for wellness tips, follow Just Ingredients at Instagram or on Instagram.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode and recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Well, if Josh Rojas is still not ready for opening day, well, it's still going to mean you're going to have a new starting second baseman for this 12th straight opening day. That's right. 12 straight opening days, the White Sox have had a new second baseman. Brandon Drury should make the team with how he's just crushing the ball in spring training, and Lenine Sosa, he's having a good spring. So at least the Sox have some professional coverage at second base, at least at the plate. Maybe with Lenine Sosa, you don't know if this is just a mirage. But Brandon Drury, if he's shown that he can come back, obviously, that's going to be very helpful. But the problem is all three are just short-term Band-Aids. And that's all that's been happening at this position. Going back to 2014, after Gordon Beckham failed to replace Ray Durham, as like the starting second baseman, or at least the long-term starting second baseman, and Ray Durham left town in 2020 or in 2002. Think about that. I mean, outside of Tadeusz Aguchi, this club has been trying to replace Ray Durham for almost 23 years. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but this Band-Aid approach has to stop. It has to stop at where the ball goes up the middle. They just keep putting on, one more Band-Aid after another and ripping it off and realizing, oh, this scab has not healed. That's why I'm hopeful for prospects such as Chase Mydroth, Jacob Gonzalez, or William Bergola, or somebody that they draft in this year's draft to maybe develop and then man this position for, say, the next 6 years. Can we just get a second baseman that just mans second base for at least the club control, the life of their club control? And if it's not even 6 years, 4 years, I'll take anything. I'm tired of these Band-Aids. And look what the Sox have been rolling out since 2014. Marcus Semien, who I talked about in the first segment, he could have been the regular second baseman for at least the rest of the decade, or at least a few more years before he probably would have gotten traded for something of value in the rebuild. Instead, in the 2015 offseason, the Sox trade him to get Jeff Samardzija, whose basically only terrible season was 2015. Micah Johnson, then he takes over in 2015, and I remember him actually being a promising prospect, but the Sox gave up on him real quick, and there's a reason, because the rest of the league gave up on him. He only played 25 more big league games after the 2015 season. Brett Lowry, he was your 2016 Band-Aid. Tyler Saladino, he was the 2017 patchwork, although he had a decent glove. Yoan Moncada, he was a 2018 opening day second baseman, because that's when the White Sox were just trying to figure out, where do we play this guy defensively? And third base, he probably should have been there from the start, really. Yolmer Sanchez, he wins that Gold Glove in his career, but he was also your potential solution in 2019 that didn't work out. Larry Garcia, he started in 2020 with Nick Madrigal eventually coming up. Madrigal, he starts the 2021 season there, but obviously the Sox realized this guy has no power. He can't hit the ball hard at all. Let's trade him to the Cubs to get Craig Kimbrell, where Tony La Russa refuses to use Craig Kimbrell effectively. Josh Harrison was the cheap solution in 2022, coming off an AL Central winning season, when it was clear you should have just spent for a second baseman and a right fielder, but can't do that. Got to have that self-imposed salary cap there. Elvis Andrus, he was amazing at short at the end of 2022, so the thought was maybe that could carry over into 2023, and let's just have him play second. It didn't. And then Nicky Lopez, he was your last year's starting second baseman, and he got non-tender from a team that lost 121 games. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew One. MLB Fantasy Draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss which players need to produce some trade value seasons. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion of the White Sox lacking top 100 talent, the team not being on national TV, and the Way Back Wednesday segment discussing basically your infamous opening day second base lineage. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.